Hello, and welcome to this brief clip in which we discuss your role as rapporteur in one of FWO's expert panels. At this stage of the procedure, several experts have already performed important work in reviewing the proposals that were submitted to your panel. Two panel members, who have a more generalist profile, and two external reviewers who were selected for their on-topic expertise, have independently of one another submitted a review. Please remember that for multidisciplinary proposals, one of the external reviewers may have expertise on a topic outside of the panel's scientific scope. This particular reviewing expertise was expressly requested by the applicant and likely addresses a part or aspect of the application that focuses on research somewhat outside the panel's own scientific scope. All four reviews are now made available to you as rapporteur for the proposal. Your role as rapporteur is to compose a synthesis report, which is what we will discuss in this video. Before we dive into your role as rapporteur, let us remind you that throughout FWO's evaluation procedures, the scoring grid plays a key role in guaranteeing an equal frame of reference to assess proposals. External reviewers are instructed to rely on the scoring grid as well, but given their limited experience with this instrument, they could potentially deviate from FWO's guidelines. Your role as rapporteur is essential in correcting such inappropriate deviations by external reviewers and potentially by less experienced panel members as well. Throughout the next steps of the evaluation process, the scores provided by the reviewers will be an important element. In the video on how to prepare the internal evaluation report, we explained how to assign scores for the different criteria. As rapporteur, you should use the same approach in assigning the scores in your synthesis report. The scoring grid incorporates FWO's policy to move away from a one-sided evaluation of candidates based solely on publications. A broader set of academic contributions should be considered when assessing the candidate. As rapporteur, you may, however, be confronted with reviews that focus mainly on publications. In these cases, we urge you to correct for this narrow approach in the synthesis report you write and in the score you give. As rapporteur, we expect you to get acquainted with the application as well as with the four reviews that were provided. In the FWO portal, you will find a form where you can submit your findings with respect to the quality of the application. Please note that at this stage, only the two main criteria, being the candidate and the project, are to be scored with a thorough motivation. However, we expect that your assessment incorporates all initial sub-criteria in a holistic way. Your synthesis report should be based on all relevant input that was provided in the four available reviews. We want to stress that you should not write your own review, but rather synthesize the feedback provided by the other reviewers. In case you believe the reviewers overlooked important elements, you can definitely add this to the report and take this into account in your score. As we indicated earlier, some reviewers may take a different approach in scoring the application, thereby insufficiently considering our scoring grid, which may lead to different scoring behavior. It is your responsibility as a rapporteur to check that your final score is in line with the assessment as well as with the scoring grid. This score may be the average of the other reviewers' score, certainly if they all correctly applied the score grid, but it may also deviate from the mathematical average as well. In the latter case, the application will very likely be thoroughly discussed during the pre-selection meeting, where you can then briefly motivate why you deviated from the average score of the other reviews. For each criterion, you will be required to provide one score. Contrary to the internal evaluation phase, you will now be able to give scores with a half-point resolution on both main criteria. Your rapporteur scores will form the basis for the discussion during the pre-selection meeting. It is the rapporteur's responsibility to assign valid scores to each application that is assigned to you. Based on the discussion with other panel members, these scores can of course still be amended during the pre-selection meeting. The deadline for submitting your rapporteur report is 1 week before the pre-selection meeting. Please respect this deadline as it gives the chairs of your panel sufficient time to analyze all scores in advance of the meeting and thus to set up an efficient and effective pre-selection meeting with the full panel. Take into account that all reviewer scores will be shared with the panel and presented during the discussion, but that no mathematical integration, such as averaging all scores, takes place. All further discussions will be based on the potentially amended rapporteur scores that you gave. As a rapporteur, you thus take up an influential position in the discussion of the application. As rapporteur, you will also be responsible for writing the feedback report for the candidate. Your synthesis report will serve as the basis for your feedback report. Bear in mind that the individual reviews will not be forwarded to the applicant. All relevant feedback from these reviews thus needs to be included in the synthesis report. The feedback should explain to applicants why they were funded or, perhaps more likely, not funded, and articulate ways in which they could improve their application in the future, to be submitted to FWO or elsewhere. Your synthesis report, as well as the feedback, has the same format and should clearly identify strengths, weaknesses, and suggestions for improvement. The form in our e-portal is therefore also structured according to these three elements, inviting you to comment on each of them. The feedback is due 1 week after the meeting, so a carefully drafted synthesis report will not only increase the transparency to the applicants, but will also help to avoid any delays in the further evaluation procedure. Writing good feedback reports is also discussed in the clips on the pre-selection and the interview meetings. This concludes this video. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact your account administrator. Many thanks for your interest in the FWO, and for now, goodbye.